So let's start. Look, corporate media, we could fill hours just talking about their failure. What
Yeah.
I've seen now with Donald sending troops into Washington, D.C. is them going, oh, well, Democrats, you're going to seem soft on crime if you bring up statistics. The guy doesn't care about crime. He cares about control. Am I missing something, Mary? The biggest day of crime in the history of Washington, D.C. was called January 6th. That was the most crimes ever committed. And then Donald pardoned those people who committed those crimes. Now we're learning if you throw a hoagie at a cop, you go to jail. Janine Pirro's all giddy about it. Beat up a cop for Trump, you walk free and get called the patriot. Why does corporate media so frustrate us? But what's your reaction to him putting troops in the street right now based on a lie, abject lie? And what's the end game? What's your sense on this?
Well, let's start with the first thing first, the failures of the corporate media. I mean, the Democrats have done themselves no favors here by constantly attacking to the right on law enforcement. They are always, I mean, between immigration and law enforcement, Democrats think that their only way to win elections is to be tougher on those things than Republicans, which I've always felt was a huge, huge mistake. So they're partially responsible for framing that particular narrative, but the corporate media seems not to be able to help itself at this point. I don't know if it's simply looking at the landscape right now and seeing that it is dangerous or at least risky to report the facts as they are, because Donald doesn't like the facts because typically they don't work in his favor. Because it is true that facts have a liberal bias. They just, and that's why the Republicans, especially Donald, are so driven to manipulate data or erase it entirely, which I know we're going to talk about later. As for this latest power grab, I'm deeply, deeply alarmed by it, as we all should be. As you said, it's based on egregious lies and manipulated statistics, lies, damn lies, and statistics. I mean, that's where we are now. And I think it is made so much worse by the background you just gave us. How is it that Democrats are soft on crime when it is Republicans who are led by one of the most prolific criminals in American history and somebody who has been found to be an adjudicated rapist, was convicted on 34 felony counts, and because of a corrupt rigged system and the fascist Republican Party has gotten away with all of it, and now has the audacity to claim that the real criminals are the black and brown people in big liberal cities. It's grotesque.
It is. And Mary, you have Republicans now openly cheering for then Donald Trump sending troops to LA and Chicago and Baltimore. And what I think is such an important point that the media is just missing here, and then even some Democrats are, it's not like Donald Trump and his base cares about us. Like you and I live in New York City. It's not like, oh, poor Dean and Mary, they have crime to contend with, so I'm going to send the National Guard there. No, Donald said last month, point blank, he hates Democrats. Mm-hmm. They all hate us. And I don't understand why some people don't get it. We are at war. They have declared war on us. This is not about crime. It's about control. They're not sending the troops here to help us. They're sending the troops there to oppress us. Yes. That's the goal, to scare us into silence. And that's being lost in all of this. And I don't know what more we can do to elevate that. I think to amplify the point that it's not about crime. It's about control. They don't want to reduce crime. They want to oppress the Democrats and anyone who dissents.
Well, let's face it. They are committing crimes in service of exercising control in the name of reducing crime. It is such a scam. It is another in a very long line of scams that they've got going on. And you're right. I think, what is the most effective way to deal with this? One, it is not to be afraid, not to allow them to chill our impulses to fight, to speak out. We need to continue to do those things. Also, I'm heartened, quite frankly, by the stance many big blue state governors are taking, including Governor Hochul of New York State, about whom I have been quite skeptical. She has made some bad moves in my view, but the fact that she actually said that they have declared war on us, we are at war, I thought was quite frankly, shocking and welcome. So, yeah, we cannot delude ourselves into thinking that this is about protecting people. This is about protecting them and their access to power and their ability to accrue more power and to continue rigging the system so that they can continue to skate free, can continue to stay in power in 2026 and beyond. So we need to recognize that right now, yes, obviously, the people most at risk are immigrants, Black people, and people in the LGBTQ plus community, especially trans people. But the enemy is anybody who does not support this regime, and that means Democrats as a class of people. So there are no lines; they're just going after the most vulnerable among us first, as a way to sideline those who still are in a position to do something about it, but are becoming too afraid because they see what's going on.
And as a practical matter, I was talking to Angela Corazon from Media Matters earlier today. He lives in DC. They've set up checkpoints in
Yeah.
Washington, DC in different places, and they just show up, and you have to pull your car over, and they ask for your ID. And there's a randomness to it. Like, I don't mean randomness in a legally good way. Like,
Yeah.
they just show up. He said, we don't even know what branch of law enforcement that are pulling you over. And the checkpoints are like something out of a movie or out of the West Bank, where my Palestinian family lives, where I've been there. But I mean, this is not the United States of America, except for a time of riots where the military's in the street, setting up checkpoints on the street. You go up, and then they're giving people tickets for various minor things as well: registration, inspection on your car, just looking for anything. And it doesn't resemble America that we know of, when the military is doing checkpoints in the streets of U.S. cities.
Because it's not. And in watching the first Levitt presser after the National Guard had been deployed, I was like, what is this? The White House press briefings are just going to be like crime blotter. Like, they're just going to tell us all of the arrests that were made, like fair jumping. Like, first of all, that's absurd that somebody can get arrested for something like that, and that we expend resources on that kind of thing. But it's as if I'm pretty sure arrests are made every day in every city. It has nothing to do with this. But I think the simplest way to look at it is that this is a blatant usurpation of power in a very specific way. What is being done is that the will of DC residents is being overturned. The Donald Trump, the Trump regime, has overturned the results of a free and fair election because the people governing Washington, D.C. are being preempted by the federal government in a way that goes against the will of D.C. voters. And quite frankly, this is just a reminder, should be a reminder to all of us, that this is a massive, this is a perfect example of yet another massive missed opportunity. Why is DC not a state? It is a more populous city than Wyoming and Rhode Island and maybe one other state, maybe West Virginia, I'm not sure. All of those states have 2 senators and representatives in the House of Representatives. DC has no representation at the federal government at all. And that is why they are so easily invaded by an occupying force, which is sadly our federal government.
How concerned are you that what Donald is doing in DC is not just a test case for other cities, but to use them around the midterm elections in an effort to try to intimidate people not to vote on election day, because you see a massive military presence out there? And you could be a U.S. citizen, but if you're a green card holder, or you're a U.S. citizen, but you might have concerns if you're a naturalized citizen, what's going on? Or just the idea of the natural concern about, why is the military outside of my voting location? Why is there a checkpoint outside of where I cast a ballot? Because that's my bigger concern, like looking a year ahead from now.
Well, that's one of the things that's so insidious about how Donald goes about things. He talks about these fictional problems, right? And he's always creating problems he's always creating solutions in search of problems that don't exist. That's what's happening right now.
Right.
DC is not a out of control criminal hellscape any more than New York or Los Angeles. So by repeating these manipulated statistics about crime, by repeating his racist tropes about large, diverse liberal cities, he convinces a lot of people that it's all true. And therefore, whatever he decides to do about it is justified. And he does that in many, many different ways. I mean, we're talking specifically right now about taking over American cities and essentially undermining state authority, which last I checked was an antithetical to the Republican platform. But, what do I know?
This party stands for whatever Donald says.
That's right.
And now you look at what else he did this week. You have the Kennedy Center Awards, which he announced the awards because he took over the Kennedy Center. And they're going to censor and change content at the Smithsonian to make sure it complies with Donald Trump's interpretation of American history. And they've said things like they plan a far-reaching review of the Smithsonian's museums to ensure it aligns with President Trump's interpretation of American history. And this is like page 28 and 29 of the Tyrant Dictator playbook. Viktor Orban's done this, and Mussolini did this. The current Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy, has done it with the Venice Biennial. They're just copying exactly what others have done, the control of cultural institutions and rewriting history in the museum to be consistent with Donald Trump, all in the same week. Like I can't believe how fast this is going. And I don't know how we effectively stop it, or we have to just prioritize, like it's triage. We have to look at the most important thing first and get back to the cultural things later.
Well, I think the cultural things are the most important things, quite frankly. And I find that the incursion into these areas and the censorship and the co-opting the arts and the expertise to the end of promoting an ideology that is, quite frankly, antithetical to the arts and expertise to be among the most serious threats we're facing. And it all has been tending toward this. How is it happening so quickly? Well, because when we had the opportunity, we did not do what needed to be done. We did not say tradition and norms aren't enough. Everything needs to be codified. We did not say if the courts are the only backstop, we need to reform the courts, especially the Supreme Court. Didn't happen. So they've been planning all of this for at least a decade, if not longer. It should not surprise us that once they gained complete control of the federal government, all three branches of the federal government, that it would unravel rapidly and at a terrifying pace. So I think that part of what needs to be highlighted here, and we've seen people speaking about it, is what an utter insult it is to, an assault it is on expertise. Museums are extraordinarily well-designed, well-thought-out places where people can go to learn, to steep themselves in culture, etc. And the people who plan exhibits, who design museums, are extraordinarily well-trained and especially Smithsonian, they're at the top of their fields. They know what they're doing. Same thing with the Kennedy Center. The idea that anybody thinks that Donald, of all people, has any business pretending that he knows better or that he knows anything is just absolutely grotesque to me. So people need to be alerted to that fact. Is this just another assault on expertise? We've seen this in many, many ways, scientific research, medical research, etc. The other thing that we need to remind people is that the arts are actually the most important mirror of and way into understanding a society, a culture. And when we neglect the arts, when we fail to protect the arts and artists, we make it that much easier for the fascists to take over. So we need to fight back by making sure people understand what's at stake here, why it matters, and we need to protect the arts and artists, because remember, all of this is happening in the context of arts and artists having been massively defunded by the federal government, as everything else has been.
And that's an excellent point. And for people who are concerned about the arts and understand the bigger picture, one, you just enjoy it. But secondly, it does tell our story. Support local art groups. For,
Yes.
the Smithsonian is going to be federal funding. That's different. But if you live in a big city someplace else, you have arts, or a small rural community, there could be a local community theater. Donate to them. Go audition. Be in it. A local museum.
Go see it.
A way to go support them. We have a way to circumvent what's going on in Washington, D.C. by the grassroots. Trump can't stop all of us. Donald can't. It's just not possible. There's too many of us to do, so we can go around it. And in the same week of all of this that we're going through, starts on Monday with the troops, and then we've got the museum, and we've got the Kennedy Center. Then Donald Trump nominates to be the new head of the Commission of Bureau of Labor Statistics, E.J. Anthony, who is a MAGA partisan hack, who is objectively not qualified, but it doesn't matter because he is loyal to Donald Trump. This is a guy who was just on Steve Bannon's podcast 2 weeks ago, because that's where reputable economists go on. Steve Bannon's podcast, right?
Totally.
Are you kidding me? But this guy, we'll be able to trust nothing. Already we couldn't trust it, but our economic data, at least I felt maybe there was some confidence in it. Now we can't even trust that. And I don't know, it's going to have an impact on people, on planning, on Social Security cost of living adjustments, but it's going to have an impact on foreign investors. Who's going to invest in this country when you can't believe the economic data coming out of the White House?
This is extremely damaging, and it's difficult to say just how bad the fallout is going to be, because nothing like this has ever happened. But I apologize. I can't remember who said this, but an expert in the field who understands the importance of providing businesses and consumers with objective economic data said that by suspending the publication of these data, we are essentially gouging out our eyes.
Wow. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And I wrote for my latest Substack article, and that, cheap plug for my Substack article, is about Argentina did a thing in the 2000s and 2010s where the leader fired the person in charge of economic data and put in effectively their MAGA person, who lied to the general public about inflation. And people's soil prices were going up. But the result was foreign investors didn't come into the country. Borrowing costs went up. It led to an economic catastrophe. They defaulted on obligations they had on the international level for other countries. So that's the kind of thing where China owns so much of our debt. If they stop buying our treasury bonds because they don't trust what we're saying, we are going to have grave consequences, because our borrowing costs go way up. It eats up to everything. We can't even finance the debt. I don't even want to get into that. If there's a collapse of the bond market, folks, the economy collapses. It's going to be ugly. So, but Donald doesn't care. I mean, and now he's going to visit Putin. So, last topic, my friend Mary, what do you think Donald does tomorrow with Putin? Does he think he offers him Alaska? He goes, "You want Alaska? You like this? You can have this here. Give me something in Moscow, I could put it on Trump Tower, or instead of, I don't know. How bad do you think it'll go? Let me ask you that. Like, what do you think? There's no wrong answer. We're all speculating here. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?"
Well, it's already as bad as it can be. And the president of the United States is meeting with the autocratic, mass murdering dictator of a hostile foreign power on American soil. That is a win for Putin right out of the gate. We also know how easily it is for Donald to be manipulated, especially by people like Putin, who's quite expert at it at this point. So how badly is it? It's going to go as badly as you can possibly imagine. My guess, I hope I'm wrong, is that Putin will say he's willing to end the war. Again, a war that Russia started illegally by invading a sovereign democratic nation that used to be our ally, just as Russia used to be our enemy. And he's going to make it clear to Donald, who just wants the war to end. He doesn't care how, because he said he was going to end it. He's failed miserably. He just wants it to end no matter what happens. Putin is going to say, I'll end the war. These are my terms. If you don't accept my terms, then I won't end the war. Donald will accept Putin's terms, which will put President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine in a very difficult situation. The terms will be so bad for Ukraine, Zelensky will not be able to accept them, because I'm guessing that will mean allowing Russia to keep the territory they have stolen from the Ukrainian people. That will allow Russia to get away with having committed these horrific crimes against humanity and the Ukrainian people, which is unacceptable to the Ukrainian people. So Zelensky will have to stand firm. And now Donald's ire will shift back to Zelensky. And then suddenly Ukraine will once again be held responsible for the fact that a hostile foreign power invaded them in an unprovoked attack that has killed tens of thousands of people, or hundreds of thousands, perhaps, at this point.
I think Mary's going to be right, because I heard the White House said today, Donald's very optimistic they're going to reach a deal tomorrow, which means, like, here's the deal. Here's the deal. And Donald's, oh, done. Great. That sounds great to me.
By the way, it's just really quickly, it's worth pointing out, as we have been all along, you cannot reach a peace deal without the most important member of the negotiations being excluded. The fact that Ukraine isn't going to be there is, I mean, I would totally understand if President Zelensky didn't want to be there, but he wasn't even invited. That's insanity to me. You cannot come up with a deal without the most important player being excluded from the deal and basically being told, here's the deal, you have to accept it. It doesn't work like that.
It's Neville Chamberlain, 1928 in Munich, coming back, peace for our time, gives Hitler a big chunk of Czechoslovakia and says, the war's going to be over, everything's fine. And a year later, the Nazis invade Poland and World War II begins. So Donald cannot be trusted. Last thing, at the press conference earlier in the week, Donald said he's meeting Putin in Russia. He said that twice. Alaska's ours. I don't know if Donald knows that, but Alaska's our property now. But he's, little by little, you see the corporate media touching on Trump's making more and more frequent mistakes of fact that are not lies. They're just something is wrong. What are you seeing as someone who's known him for most of your life now? Any more degradation?
Yeah, constantly. I mean, it's like these things don't suddenly turn around to get better. They become rapidly worse over time. He's 79. He's a deeply unhealthy person. He's under enormous amounts of stress, and he's got serious untreated psychiatric disorders. Plus, God knows what else is going on with his health. So, yes. But what I wonder is he just softening the ground, which is something else he's quite good at, by getting people used to the fact that Alaska is going to belong to Russia again.
We've got a peace deal. Everyone out of Alaska, you got to move, or you can be Russian citizens. I made the best deal ever, and and now we have. He'll come up with something, but I have access now to Moscow to build my Trump Tower.
It's all that matters.
It's a challenging time. We have to keep a sense of humor. We have to be there for each other, because it's not over. We've not reached the darkest point of Donald term 2.0. In my heart, I don't believe that we're on the way. I'm hoping one day we'll look back and like, oh, wow, I can't believe what we endured as a people. These are difficult times, and we have to be there for each other. That's the only way to make it through this.
I agree, my friend.
So, all right, Mary, thank you. And your Substack is The Good in Us? The Good in Us?
That's it, The Good in Us.
And what about the YouTube channel? Is it Mary Trump Media? People should check that out.
It's Mary Trump Media. It's going great, and you've been a big part of that as a nerd avenger. So our next goal. We're at over 450,000 subscribers. Our next goal is 500,000. So guys, check it out. We'd really appreciate it.
Check it out. Thanks, Mary. Nice chatting with you. Nice chatting with everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.
Take care, my friend.
Thanks. Bye.